Well, hello, Vanguard community. Today is Thursday, April 16th, 2020. I'm Jennifer Methvin, Chancellor at ASU-Beebe, and welcome to Doing Things Differently, Learning Something New. These are just a series of conversations about how the current COVID pandemic is affecting our faculty, our staff, and our students. And I have with me today LaShanda Owens. LaShanda, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello. My name is LaShanda Owens. I am the Campus Operations Manager for the ASU Searcy and Little Rock Air Force Base campus. I've been with ASU-Beebe since around 2018, I think, October. And previously attended school fresh out of high school at ASU-Beebe as well. So very familiar with the campus and have a passion for the college. In my previous life, I worked in several other areas: higher education, aviation, corporate America, and I have two fabulous children and several animals. Just a little bit about me.
And having children and animals is sort of impactful here during this current situation. Well, the idea behind these conversations is I've been telling faculty and staff as we worked our way through this unusual situation that I wanted to make sure that we learn all we can from this experience. And so hence the title, Doing Things Differently, Learning Something New. We just want faculty and staff to have some insight into what students are experiencing, and students to have insight into what faculty and staff are experiencing, and just to capture some of the things that we are learning. So here's the idea. It's 5 questions, about 15 minutes. I ask 4. My guest gets to ask me 1 as well. It's only fair. And then we share this with our faculty, staff, and students and hope we can garner something that will be helpful to us in the future. So with that, are you ready, LaShanda?
I'm ready.
All right, Ms. Owens, your first question is this. Since we moved to remote work on March the 20th, which seems like 5 years ago at this point, what's been the most challenging part of accomplishing your work for ASU-Beebe during this time?
I think not working directly in person with my teammates. And so if we needed something, we could always run across the building or walk down to another building and just solve the issue. And so I think the biggest challenge is just making sure that everybody was in the same room together, and the room's different now. So the table's different. So it's a Zoom table and it's a Zoom room. And so it means there's a Zoom link that goes out to our, our fellow staff members, and they may or may not be with a student, or they may or may not be in another meeting. And so we're trying to get everybody in the same room, all the key players, to kind of solve problems. And so that's huge. And then I think the other piece is just making sure that everybody's all right. Just making sure they have what they need from their cameras, computers, technology assistance. So those 2 things have been huge for us, which also causes a bit of a challenge for your daily routine, because it's never the same, because it's a routine based around others who are now remote. So.
Right, and so you're talking about the Searcy Campus and the Little Rock Air Force Base campus, and the Little Rock Air Force Base campus was closed pretty early on.
Yes, yes. And so we also forwarded all those calls to Searcy as well. So we filled those calls as well as the Searcy calls and any other calls for any campus from anyone who might need assistance. So we just do whatever we need to do to take care of everybody.
Yes, y'all are doing it great too. So throughout this process, have you learned anything? Is there anything here that might help us better serve students in the future?
Well, one of the key things that I think, or one of the key learnings I think that we've found, is that we can serve our students, we can serve our faculty and staff without being face-to-face. So we're learning how to pivot and how to jump on a Zoom call, to call people directly, to send that text, to email, and to find alternative ways or methods to kind of get where we need to be. It's triggered some key thoughts on how maybe in the future we could do some things differently, whether it was virtual tours or a virtual admissions process or even virtual orientation. So,
yeah, I think we're getting a lot more adept at, 4 weeks ago, you and I might not have so casually sat here with the Zoom going and the recorder on and just had a casual conversation. We might have been a little bit more uptight about it. Yeah, so we're learning lots of new tools, and those tools might help us serve students better. Yes, I agree. Well, talk a little bit about yourself. You know, we all are ASU-Beebe employees, and we have our campuses and our students to take care of, but we're also moms and dads, and in my case, grandmother, and people who have lives. What's been personally challenging for you?
I think personally it's been challenging with the COVID-19 piece for us at home is the fact that I have a senior. And so there's no graduation, there's no prom, there's no celebration. So for him, he's experiencing a different kind of graduation. And so we have to work through those pieces. He's also locked in the house most of the time as well. And so that's very hard for a 17-year-old. And then you have a very social 14-year-old who is trying to figure out why her friends cannot come over and hang out as well. So for me personally, no challenges with my animals. Those are great. But with my human children, it's helping them understand how critical the pandemic is and how it can affect them, and then trying to make sure they understand that they have to kind of shelter in place during a time where they would normally be free to have friends and be celebrating. So that has been the most challenging thing, is just getting them to understand that this is pretty scary, and so we have to shelter in place and do things differently.
Yeah, so in addition to your son being a senior, he's an athlete, right?
Yes.
I would think that's challenging for him to not be engaged in athletics.
He is a soccer player. He also fractured his nose in one of the last games that he played in as well. And so we had those pieces as well. And we couldn't keep him still long enough to really take care of that the way we should. But not only that, then we lost the whole final part of the soccer season as well. So that was hard too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a niece who is a great niece, not just a niece. She's a great niece. Her mother is my niece, who is a senior, and we FaceTimed on Sunday, and that's very difficult for our area seniors and their parents, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, all right. That's the first three questions, so it's only fair. What's your question for me?
So let's see. What is your best tip for making the world a better place after the COVID-19 crisis?
Making the world a better place after this is over. Well, your episode 2, Ms. Owens, and Joseph Scott, our faculty senate president, was episode 1. And I guess one of the things I talked about with him was my pace has slowed down quite a bit. I have to be I am reflecting more and journaling more and reading more, because the decisions that we're making are so very important and so very heavy. So my pace of work has really gotten a little slower than it normally is, and I normally move at a pretty fast pace. And that made me think about that in terms of other parts of our lives and the impact of this. I think it's probably true that we are going to relish our moments with family and friends much more going forward. It's a very unnatural thing. My parents, who are in their 80s, in their late 80s actually, have lived through a lot of history, and to have to say to them, so that I can see them and talk to them, no, put the phone down and look at the face of your phone so I can see you. You'll be able to see me, and remind them, oh yeah, there's this thing, FaceTime, forgot, and for that to be our relationship right now, because I'm coming to work every day. I don't need to be in the same space that they're in until this is over, or putting them at risk. So I think the things that we will do and appreciate about people when this is over will be a positive. I think if you think through history and other times, the Depression, wars, things when times have been tough, you sort of rebound out of those with some pretty high family values, valuing your time with your family and your friends and relationships in whatever ways that those are. And I think that will probably be the same here. I think we have already seen it in the Vanguard family, right? When we do the forums, it just kills me. You know, every time that we had the Vanguard family together in person, what do I say? I step to the mic and I say, gosh, I hate to stop the conversations going on in the room, because they're really good conversations and they're really good relationships. So when we did the second, I think, virtual campus forum, the chat box just went just like that, with people going, hey, I miss you guys. I see you guys. Good to see your face, and those sorts of things. I believe we will appreciate and not take for granted one another so much, and maybe value one another's talents and uniquenesses, perhaps, and really focus in, put down the phones and put down the iPads and focus into one another when we actually can be in physical space together. Let's try to do that anyway. And see, now, LaShanda, you can make me cry.
No crying. No crying.
I think that would make the world a better place. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
thankful for that. Okay, good. All right, so very similar question as my last question of the series here. What's the silver lining to all of this? Whether that be for you, your family, for us at ASU-Beebe, for our state, our nation. What's a silver lining for us going through this experience at this time?
I think there's the silver lining. It's huge for us, not only personally but professionally. I think that we'll do things differently, very similar to what you discussed earlier. But I also think we're going to learn we're learning how to shelter in place. We're learning how to slow down. We're learning how to get back to things that were very simple. For example, my daughter asked to have some yarn so she could crochet. She asked for some sidewalk chalk so she could go outside and draw, and she's 14. So typically that's not what she would do. She'd be on the phone. And so I think the silver lining is we're slowing down. We're going back to a simpler place in time. But then not only that, we're learning how to pivot and it's kind of in a new space. And so for those of us who were not technology savvy, I think we're getting there. I think we're adding backgrounds to our Zoom. I think we're learning how to Zoom. We're trying to figure out what kind of technology we need. And we're also trying to figure out how we can touch people without physically touching them. So maybe we can't see them face to face. Maybe we can't shake their hand, but we can meet those new students. We can meet industry partners, and we can have conversations without physically being in the same room. And so I think for those of us who in the past maybe were not accustomed to that, I think we're going to be able to have some experiences with that will make us better employees, better family members. You see people Zooming all the time. We see people having virtual Zoom birthday parties. And so I think we're all pivoting, but we're headed in a good direction. And I think we'll also see some changes where people who normally would say that they'd have to be in person to do things will understand and will attempt to do things differently virtually and in a variety of ways as well. So I think it's kind of helped us with being able to pivot and being able to work differently. So it's a new way of working, a new way of being at home, a new way of going to church, a new way of shopping. So you can shop online as well. And I think this is going to be great for us.
Good, good. Well, LaShanda, thank you for your time today. This is LaShanda Owens. She's our campus operation manager for both the Searcy Campus and the Little Rock Air Force Base Campus at ASU-Beebe. I have enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your time for joining us here on this series. This was the second of many more to come. Up next will be one of our students, Kara McBrayer. I hope you'll stay tuned for episode 3, where we hear how things are going from a student's perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.